Welcome back to another episode of Honesty Talk, where we will be talking about the blessed words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Qur'an. I'm looking forward to this episode. I know both of you are too. Who am I going to start with? Oh, why? That's what we call her, by the way, sometimes. The words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the perfect, preserved words of Allah, and our relationship with them. What comes to mind?
What comes to mind for me is my journey, my personal journey with the words of Allah. So I was born in a Muslim household, and one of the things that, even though we weren't raised to practice, one of the things that my parents were really big on was sending us to madrasa. And me being the eldest, I was the one who got the most out of that, because there's a 4 or 5 year gap between me and my brother after me. And so I was the one who learned how to read and the tajweed and stuff. And even though my parents didn't make us recite at home or do any revision, or there was no active relationship with the Qur'an at home, that foundation for us was really quite important. I took that for granted. So all through my teens, I didn't have an active relationship with the Qur'an. I wasn't reciting, would only do it in madrasa, close it, put it back, and then open it again when it was time. But one thing, may Allah bless and reward my parents for that grounding, Allahumma ameen, that I'm really grateful that they gifted me with that ability and ease to read, because I can see how my siblings don't necessarily have that as strong of as a foundation that I do. But even with that ability to read, I don't think I had a real active relationship with reciting the Quran until I was at uni, when I was 18. And that was being in the ISOCs and in the prayer rooms, and there would be the sisters who would read and recite. But even then, it was more a relationship of reciting and not a relationship of the heart with the Quran. And I would honestly say the relationship with the heart with the Quran has only come in the last couple of years.
SubhanAllah.
So there was a relationship of reciting, but the relationship of the heart with it, very, very different. And it's fascinating as I'm reflecting on that right now, and that's coming to me, this realization, like, wow, you were reciting, but it wasn't a hear, yearning. I want to see what my Lord has to say to me. I want to hear the stories of old that I can learn from. What are the lessons? And I think you have definitely been a part of that journey with Recite and Reflect, Tadabbur, and that's definitely been part of the planting the seeds journey. How do we come to the Quran and recite, but also reflect on it? What is Allah saying? How is He speaking to us specifically through those verses, through the verses and through the messages and through even the descriptions of Jahannam and Jannah? Like, how is He speaking to us? Alhamdulillah, may Allah elevate you and increase you and bank it for you.
Ameen.
And all the other people that have benefited from your work in the past, and Allahumma ameen. But yeah, it's interesting to know that we can have, for me, just reflecting, we can have a relationship of recitation, we can have a relationship of hifz, but there's something else when it's a relationship with the Quran in the heart. SubhanAllah. And it's different. It feels like different levels even, you know?
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh man, listening to you. I think also for me, alhamdulillah, like I have to say a prayer for my parents for the effort they put in. So my parents decided to move us to Cairo so that we could learn Arabic and Quran. So I went as a child, and my relationship started there, learning to read. But again, as kids, it's memorization. It's a project to learn to read and memorize. And I think also over time, I mean, that is all the way through like my teenage years, and then of course for uni, and then early, like being a mom of young children, it kind of, and I picked it back up later. But I started rememorizing again. And memorization is a mission. It's not. It isn't. It isn't a heart thing. It wasn't until the reflection came. I feel like reflection is a different. It's another side. It's another angle. And I still had that kind of like you know, and now it's something that we see that people are like, oh, I want my kids to memorize the whole Quran. Like it's this. It's like an honor and a title and an achievement. But is it the? Now I feel like it's changed. Like now I want my kids to have a relationship with the Quran that's theirs. I want them to know and love Allah. I want them to know what a valuable like resource this is, and that they have access to it and they can go back to it. Like I'm aware that they're going to have their own journeys in life, and they can go far and they can come close, and they just need to know where their home is. And I want to give them that. They could grow up and choose to memorize, and inshallah they can, but that's not my like, I'm not fixated on the title anymore. For me right now, I think that I'm learning about the Quran being a healing, just the power of exposure to it, like listening to it, reciting it in large quantities, and away from reflection, away from memorization, just the blessing of being like steeped in Allah's words and what it does. And I'm finding this to be like, it's new. It's new for me to think about it that way and to see it in action, and how it impacts, you know, in your household and your kids, and it changes everything. And this is new to me. This is new to me. And I think, yes, there's emphasis on tajweed and this other stuff. It's part of it. I'm not taking away. But I just think, yeah, it depends on where you are and what you're looking for.
I'm listening to both of you, and I think my experience has obviously been very, very different as a revert, where there wasn't that exposure at all as a child. And upon embracing Islam, and I think I probably speak on behalf of most reverts, one's relationship with the Quran is a struggle right from the beginning, in that you're not even familiar with the language, right? And having to literally learn, you know, the alphabet as an adult, and then the correct pronunciation, and then learning to read, and you know, it's a struggle. It's a struggle and a half. And so I think as a revert, my relationship with the Quran before I embraced Islam was one where, like, it was one of discovery. You know, this is supposed to be a holy book. What is it saying? How is it different to the Bible? You know, and kind of looking at it from that lens before Islam. And then after embracing Islam, it was literally, okay, right, this is like study. You know, I have all of these letters. They look strange. They look really weird. And I have to remember to associate the right sounds with the right letter, and then joining them up. And it was really intense and really difficult. And then you're doing that as an adult, and then you're seeing other adults who just, mashallah, recite so beautifully, you know, with this amazing melody, and there you are struggling to, you know, it's really, really hard. I think for me now, it's interesting because even though I kind of my relationship with the Quran started off like that, I think when I had children, it became the hifd was the goal, right? And I think that is a goal for most parents, that they want their children to memorize the Quran, to become guardians of the Quran, and that certainly was you know, my goal with my eldest. And alhamdulillah, you know, mashallah, she memorized the Quran, mashallah, when she was 12, and there was my relationship with the Quran became trying to facilitate that for her, you know, even though I was kind of not on that journey myself in the same way. And then I think, similar to you, it's only actually been in the last few years where I've kind of developed a relationship with the words of Allah, in the sense that, what is the personal message for me? You know, what is Allah saying to me? Even in the verses that talk about the hypocrites and the disbelievers, and what is the message for me? Okay, what am I going through right now in my life? And I'm on this particular page and I have my daily portion, but what is the message for me? What is my Lord telling me? And so actually, you know how big I am on dua. That's me talking to Allah, but my daily portion is Allah talking to me. And I think when I think back to the times when that wasn't a consistent part of my life, it was a very different relationship that I was having with Allah. And now it's like Allah is with me. Not just in the sense of me taking a step towards him through dua and communication in that sense, but actually there's a message for me every day. As long as I read his love letter to me, as long as I'm engaging with his words. So I think it's taken on a different meaning. And I'm currently actually doing a course where we are studying the tafsir, and we're doing tadabbur, and it's a lot of questions, a lot of pondering from cover to cover. And that has just completely transformed my relationship with the Quran. Like, I'm reflecting and understanding the words of Allah from completely, because you're going through the reasons for revelation as well. And it's so that bringing that into the personal message, I'm just in love. No, really, it's like I can't get enough of it. And the sisters on our group, my daughter Lush said, you know, you've entered your auntie era with your aunties on your Quran group, and you know, but it's amazing, and I can't get enough of it. It's like we had a gap, we had like a break, and it just felt like something was missing, you know, and we were all eager to come back to, you know, to the lessons resuming. So yeah, I think it's a journey, isn't it? It's a journey.
Yeah, and just listening to what you were saying about your dua is you coming to Allah, and you speaking to Allah, and the Quran, like, speaking to you. It's that thing of realizing that these are living words. They were recited and revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam 1400 years ago, but they are living words for us today. And even when you were talking about your kids having a relationship with the Quran, it's that thing of knowing that the Quran, yes, is for humankind, and it's for them specifically. So we could all read a single verse
And take different.
but the message will be unique to us, because Allah knows how he's speaking to each of us in that single verse.
Not just that, you could read the same verse at a different point in your life, and you take a completely different meaning from it. And how many times has that happened to people? Where, you know, we maybe, you know, complete the Quran every Ramadan, you come across a verse throughout the year, and it hits differently.
Like, I've got in my digital mushaf, I've got these bookmarks in certain ayahs. I've got different bookmarks for different things, right? And so I'll come across a bookmark and I'm like, where was I when I initially bookmarked this? And what is it saying to me today? How is this bookmarked verse speaking to me today? And it's like you said, it's a completely different message every single time. SubhanAllah. And what a mercy. You know, even when you think, okay, I finished reciting the Quran, you finish reading the Quran from cover to cover, you're not done, because there are gems still. Read it again. That you're never finished in your journey with the Quran, with the words of Allah. And you'll read that verse, even Surah Al-Fatiha. You know, the one that we just recite. Surah Al-Fatiha, sometimes you can just read one verse from Surah Al-Fatiha and you're like, like you read it for the first time, and it'll hit a different part of your heart that it didn't hit
because of the contemplation, because you take the time to kind of draw lessons and to just sit back and kind of think, right, this is happening, this is what Allah is saying, you know, let me kind of read between the lines of my situation and apply it. And I think it's that. And I think the more we put into our relationship with the Quran, the more we will get from it.
For sure.
And I just think about myself, and there have been, you know, since I became Muslim, you know, subhanAllah, all these years, that there were times where I was not close to the Quran. It wasn't my life manual at all, you know? And I can see the difference in how I was as an individual, as a woman, as a servant of Allah, to when I actively chose to give it time, to make it a priority. And subhanAllah, how much I got back in return. And this is a mercy of Allah. And I think it's not just a book. It's not just something to recite. These are the actual words of the Creator, yeah, that have been preserved. They are a miracle. And we know that it was the miracle that was given to the Prophet ﷺ, but it's a miracle individually for us and our lives and our circumstances. And if we were to see it in that way and approach it in that way and prioritize it, there's just so much barakah that we get from it.
Listening to you guys talk about how you mentioned the ISOC days, we call them MSAs. And I'm remembering back to like the transition you go from being like a Qur'an school, weekend school kid to becoming like a young adult who's choosing to have this relationship with the Qur'an for yourself. I think for me it was because they have these things called da'wah tables that we would do. And people would come up to the table and ask us questions about Islam. And we were raised in the faith, but we weren't formally educated about it in that way, not enough to. And so we started to learn rapidly at that time because we had to have something to say and answer these questions. And it becomes this process of all of our children, as they become young adults, are going to have to choose. They're going to have a time where they have to decide at what they want to be as Muslims and what their relationship with the Qur'an is going to look like, or that they'll feel the need to come to it and search for it. The other thing was, and I'm going to take us to the side to Ruqyah. Ruqyah means like Quranic healing, and how, you know, the Qur'an has these properties. It is a miracle in that way as well, that this is the word of Allah and it impacts things when it is read, when it is said, you know. And the concept of in Ruqyah where you read Qur'an and blow on water or blow on oil and then apply that, and how the Ruqyah, I put Ruqyah water in my plants and they're doing better. The plants that are in my bedroom where I read my wird, my daily portion, are doing better than the plants in the living room. And I'm just like, the exposure to the actual sound and the impact that it has. I didn't think about Al-Fatiha you mentioned. I didn't think about it in that way because we just read it, like we read it in Salah so much. We read it so much. It's one of the like smoothest reads you have because you read it so much. But Al-Fatiha has such strong ruqyah that now when I read Al-Fatiha, I literally feel like the sound is healing my, like I feel like it's impacting like me when I'm reading it. And the nasal sounds, that when you do the like the noons and the memes in, you feel this warm buzz inside of it. The Quran is extraordinary for that. It's extraordinary.
Look at her, wait, look at her t-shirt, look at her jumper. Got to point it out right now, just on that note.
Is this merch that
right? Yeah.
Is this merch that
I'm not hawking, I'm not pushing anything. Yeah.
But you know, subhanAllah, just from a scientific level, right? There's been experiments done with water, or even with plants, where you give them, where you say nice words to them and how they do, and then when you are harsh and horrible to plants and how they do. And there's been experiments on water and the impact of words on water. This is just words. Now the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I remember listening to something from Sheikh Muhammad al-Sharif, Allah yarhamhu. In one of his lectures, he was talking about anxiety and the Qur'an. And he was saying that there's something specific about when we recite Qur'an, what it does to the nervous system because of the sounds and the healing properties of sound, but adding to that the words of Allah and the ways that we use so humming can really calm the vagus nerve, subhanAllah. And we have the ghunna, right? And like we're literally humming internally in our throats, subhanAllah. And this is embedded in the way that we recite, not just like running through the Qur'an, but actually slowly reciting. And you don't need to have a melodious voice to be able to recite with like with the tajweed. It's not about melody. It's just about using the sound, subhanallah, and how that actually impacts the vagus nerve that causes our nervous system to calm down and the cortisol levels to shift downwards. Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar indeed.
And only now science is saying this, right?
Yes.
Right. But then we're blowing this onto the water, onto ourselves, and the healing power truly. If we were to take the Qur'an as what it is, our lives will change. And for me, like of course, my daughter has a condition. One of the things I always say to her when she says, "Mommy, I've got pain," she now will say, "Yes, I recited my Fatiha."
She knows.
Because I'll ask it before the paracetamol or the painkiller. Have you done that's our first, and then the medicine is second. Because why? This should be like our way of life. Like where's the pain? Put your hand there, recite your Fatiha. And something my son says is not, he says, my intention when I recite or when I take medicine or whatever is not that Allah will cure me, but that He is curing. Like that's a different, like it's not coming. Like I was saying to you in the car when we were coming, it's not coming. No, it's not that it will come. It's here.
Yeah.
It's happening. It's an active relationship that's happening right now, an active process.
Yeah.
Subhanallah.
Alhamdulillah. I just wanted to point out one other thing actually that came to mind in what can prevent us actually from having a really deep relationship with the Quran. And I feel that the translations do not do justice. Now that's obviously problematic. If you're not even if you're an Arab speaker, you know, obviously the Arabic of the Quran is of the highest level. But I think we need to actively either study Arabic, or if we can't do that, to at least attend courses where the gems are pointed out and explained, at least that as a start. And I was speaking to a sister who, mashallah, teaches an absolutely amazing course. Can I do a shout out? Am I allowed to do a shout out? Sister Ola from Arabic Gems. And Sister Ola from Arabic Gems, shout out to her, mashallah. And I was speaking to her, and she just went into the powerful linguistic meaning of one verse in a short surah in Juz Amma. And it blew my mind, and I'm so sorry I can't even remember it to kind of go into it, but what it kind of drove home for me was that I don't understand Arabic, but what I can do is attend courses like these or go on YouTube where they are pointing out verses that I'm familiar with, that I use in my salah, that I regularly recite in my salah, but subhanallah, whereby I understand the linguistic beauty and how that directly transforms my relationship with Allah, and I live with that and I apply that. And I think we need to do that. Obviously, the grander goal is to study Arabic, to study, you know, Quranic Arabic, but at least maybe that's a starting point. Otherwise, we're doing ourselves an injustice because the translation is sometimes even wrong or off or loose or weak. We just can't capture it.
Because English is a blah language.
Yeah.
You have a verse.
You have to make do.
Yeah.
You know, you got one word and you need a whole paragraph to explain that one word in the Quran, because the Arabic is so rich, but Quranic Arabic is also very rich because it's the words of Allah. So it doesn't even match just, you know, standard Arabic forms. You know, there's depth into why Allah used that word and that preposition in that way, because this is what He's telling us, and He's using language in this way because, and you're like,
yeah, that's what I mean. And we've got to grab those. We've got to the teachers that are teaching these things, we've got to grab hold of them, because they're just they're just transformational. And I don't know, it kind of it made me hungry for more. You know, it was like when she shared this with me, and subhanAllah, I wish I could remember it to share it, you know, with our viewers. But it was just like, wow, I was floored, you know, and I wanted more of it. So I think that's a starting point for us.
When you were talking about the barriers, also, I think we could also address the people who do feel that they have a real barrier to the Qur'an, maybe from the place of feeling sinful or that they've done too much wrong, feeling of unworthiness with regards to the relationship with the Qur'an and their relationship with Allah. So because they have a challenge in their relationship with Allah, that filters into their relationship with His words. What do you have to say for those people?
I mean, I was listening to Aliyah talking about this beautiful thing that she's found, and I was thinking about the people who have yet to get to that point. And I think there is a lot of, it can feel like the barrier to entry is very high, and there's a lot of requirements, and, you know, learning the Arabic language is going to be a several year long project. So what about right now? What do I do right now? And I think it's important to say, yes, we have to start with the resources that we have. If all I've got is Sahih International and Abdul Halim, I'm going to start there. And I think to pull away from, and we talked about this, the image we have of how this act of worship should look. I need to be melodious and I need to be like this. Pull away from it needing to be something, you know?
Just come as you are.
And also the most beautiful recitation is a sincere one.
Yes, what I mean.
And one with a present heart that wants to come close to Allah. So for the person who's not there yet, I think just starting with having a relationship with the Qur'an, just start reading, just begin where you are, and Allah will increase you, inshallah.
And I just want to add on that, and actually we're coming to the end of the episode, that subhanAllah, I made a very specific dua about the Qur'an. And very, very specific, very personal, so I can't really kind of go into the dua itself. But subhanAllah, very, very shortly after that, this course came my way. And the way it came my way was like, this was like Allah literally like handing me this course, right? And so never underestimate the yearning and the asking of a relationship with the Qur'an, regardless of what resources you have and what capabilities and what abilities and what stage you're coming to the Qur'an. Because you yearn for it sincerely, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring everything and everyone your way in order for you to experience the beauty of His words. And I think actually on that we might have to end the episode because I'm being given signs that we need to wrap up. But we ask Allah, right, to bless us all with shifa, with healing, with
closeness to Him and His words.
And with
I just want to say with healing too, especially for those who have a trauma related to the Qur'an in ways that they were raised in the Qur'an with punishment, really praying for them to have a healing so that they can come to the words of Allah, not from the perspective of their teachers who used to beat them or used to shout down at them, but from a personal relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Ameen. Ameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all of us a close, intimate relationship with Him and His words. Ameen. Thank you very much for joining this episode, and we look forward to speaking with you again at the next episode of Honesty Talk, inshallah.
To put things in their appropriate place. People, status, things in their appropriate place.
Only when I arrive at that point myself, having grown from the last experience,
we have to be in the place to take it and to apply it and to put it forward.
Yeah. Having chosen differently, having taken enough pause to choose better.
And whoever's been given wisdom, then they've been given like a huge good, a great good, and then turning it into a dua.
I gain that wisdom.
Allahumma atini al-hikmah, give me the wisdom that if I've been given that, I've been given like a great good.